Okay, here we are. Uh, I sent out this page. It's actually got two things on it in case you wanted to take a pen or something and actually color one of these in. Some of you have some pens and gray markers. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to paint a little value study. But I'm just saying I had the extra paper and I just ran off two of them in case. Okay, so what I did was I transferred one of these to a small piece of good watercolor paper. You could use 140 or 300 pound, but I want you to work on the same paper that you're gonna be working on when you do the real painting. So I've got some black and some brown here. I don't have much brown. Let's get a little more out here. And this is really strong paint. And I just wasn't happy with just using black. And so I put some brown in. It just feels richer to me that way. This is sort of pretty much a one color thing. You can choose. So I have started this out, and here's what you do. You look at this and you squint real hard, and look at where the dark places are. You know, what stands out to you as pretty darn dark. Doesn't have to be black, just pretty dark. And then paint those in really dark paint. Now this paint is still thin enough that it will flow off the brush, but it is pretty concentrated. And I decided to start with the darks first. I don't usually do that, but that's what I'm trying out here. You might want to do it differently, and you are certainly welcome to decide to try it a different way. There's some kind of limb here or something. And this tree comes down, and what I'm going to do here, I'm going to leave a little white space around part of that horn. As you can see, these are the Longhorns. Okay. And there is a cow laying out here on the ground. A really dark cow. You can hardly tell what it is. And I don't even care if it's a cow. It's just a nice little dark shape that really attaches itself to that tree. Could be a fallen limb or something instead. I don't care. Or it doesn't have to be anything. And then we need some foliage up here. And this is pretty darn dark. And that's really a blank space there. It needs something. This would be a good time to practice making some little tree shapes. So remember, you're not painting individual leaves. You're painting clumps of leaves. There's a little space in between some of them. And again, the paint is floating off the brush. I do have some little skips there that are little white, you know, what I call sparkles. And, oh, here's some more. Looks like some bit of a limb coming down there or something. I don't know. I really don't care. So Sophie has decided it's time for me to feed her right when I started this. Sorry, Sophie, let's wait. And let's put a limb down here. Okay, something like that. Well, we definitely got to have something over here too. There. Okay. Yeah, that kind of filled it in. That's kind of better. So I already did dark spots on the cows. I made some spots. I left some little highlights around there on the ears because there are like little highlights there. And while I'm not doing the details, I covered up the eyes. You know, I didn't worry with any of that stuff. I did kind of fuss a little bit with trying to get some little bits of white there. You know, they make kind of a halo on the head. Some little places like that. right here, there is quite a bit of contrast between the highlight and this shadow area. And I made some of that kind of dark. You know, you might decide to go a little bit lighter with that. But something about like this. Then we need some lighter values. So next, I think I'm going to go for some of the other tones that are on the cattle. And all I'm going to do, I could use my brown, or I could use my brown and my black. And I'm mixing a lot of water in. I want to have plenty enough here because you notice I'm working pretty wet, even though I'm working really small. And I'm not doing fine detail. This is a value study. So, and it's going to do two things for us. Of course, frequently a value study is because you are actually going to change up some values in the picture to suit you. I'm really happy with a lot of the values in here. But the other thing is to get familiar with the values and go ahead and learn to get dark enough, because many of us don't get dark enough. Okay, so let's see what this value is. Here's some shadowy grass over here. Let's see what this will do. Well, I'll go ahead and put this in while I'm thinking about it. Okay, because this is dark enough here. And the thing is, see this little highlight here on the side of the head? I left that white, but that really shouldn't stay white. That should blend in with the grass. That is, they're about the same value. That's what I'm trying to say. So, and you could take your brush, you know, and turn it like that to make some grass. We're not detailing grass right now either. Okay, so we've got this. Here's some other shadow that I have no idea what it's about. There must be another tree there somewhere. Oh, and the, what do we call this? The muzzle, the nose, the whatever. There's a little highlight on the side of it. Whoops, I think I covered that up. Oh, well. I think that's not quite dark. There, add a little bit more color in. There. Okay, there. So now let's look at these shapes along here on the back. Now, if you wanted to, you could take a pencil and kind of draw that in if you wanted to. You can see right here at the hip bone that these cattle have got a real prominent hip bone there because they're Longhorns. And I could just, I'm going to just make it come in close. This area up in here. But this is your chance to get familiar with your subject. And see, I'm working a little bit lighter here. So I'd like to stick with about 4 values on this. I should have mentioned that before now. About 4 values. So all of this is in shadow. Just get that brush really wet and soupy. And the grass down here is a little bit lighter than this area. So it's going to be just about the same as the cow. So let's see, I'll just make that lighter value there. You could leave a few little twinkles. There we go. I think I could have had a little bit more white there. Well, this is my practice. This is my chance to practice. So now here's the thing. We have shadow areas, like here we have shadow areas, and we also have local color. So this little calf is kind of light, but she, whoever, has a lot of what we call local color. That is, she has spots, just like this one has spots. She has lighter colored spots, and she has some areas that are darn near white. So I'm also painting local color at the same time. You're just painting however dark something looks. That's how dark you make it. The face here on this side gets a little darker, and whoops. I'll try to does something about like that. Again, when we get on the big painting, which is considerably larger than this, we'll work on, you know, accuracy. We'll work on shaping the eyes. I need to point that out. Some people want to go ahead and trace off that big one. Man, they're ready to get started. Well, I want you to pay attention. I hope no one's traced it yet. I want you to pay attention to the eyes and the shape of the eyes. I tried to draw them as accurately as I could. We don't want the eyes to be too prominent, but they do have sort of almost an almond shape when they're looking at you straight on. When they're looking at you straight on, there's sort of an almond shape there. And this area back here, we could call that, we'll mix that with the whites. We'll leave that really light. So here we go. Well, this is going pretty fast. So again, this area, I could call that white up along the back. Right there on the side of the nose, I think I'll put a little color in there. Oh, that's a little too much. Let's just suck that up a little bit. There we go. And these legs. There we go. And then this one back here is just pretty pale. This is the probably, you know, our lightest light, which actually that was 2. I mean, we're only working with 4 values. I'm not even doing 5. I'm trying to do 4. So that little character back there has just got a little shadow. And we need some more grass shadow. Again, that's a little bit darker tone like we had over here. I'm just putting some dots in there, throwing in a little bit of texture, you know, a little bit of sense of foliage and grass and stuff. Now you will notice that this copy that you have is from a paste up. I mean, I pasted these cows in, I moved this cow down, I enlarged this cow and made it large, and have covered up, you can see the bits of horns back here. I covered that cow up. We're going to leave that cow out. So this is all, you know, it's got about 4 different pieces in it. Yeah. So let's see. I think, even though this one looks to be in a pretty light place, I think I'm going to put a little shadow there. Okay. There we go. So what have we got over here? Well, we need some more grass. I tell you what, we're going to treat that pretty. There's some kind of light areas here. That does show up, doesn't it? No, that doesn't show up. Oh, gee. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay, so there's some. This is darker right here. There are a few like little light areas, so I'm just going to leave twinkles in there because that kind of feels like foliage. Or that is, it's a little more like foliage. It's a little kind of messy. Like grass, I mean. Just put that in. I'm going to have to go to the store and get some PBO for the big one because we are going to use a little bit of masking. There, okay. Yeah, we got a light area there. now the lightest value, we need these are trees that are quite a ways off. And there'll be that nice, cool, bluey gray when we do this. That's a nice color for this, I think. If you want to do a different color, though, you can. And some of that may even mix in with this a little bit. You know, you can have some limbs and stuff, but I wouldn't treat the limbs as a different value or different color. I'd keep them kind of running in and blending with what's already here. And then there are some differences here. Here's sort of a little clump that's a little higher up. Again, you're kind of rehearsing for something else later. I mean, for the bigger one. But the thing that I want you to think about is don't just make a bunch of same marks there. You know, I call those fence posts. Don't do the same thing over and over again. Look at what nature has provided us with. Oh, shoot. And I covered up the barn. So we could have the barn back there or house or whatever it is, or we can skip it. I think this time I'm going to skip it. Maybe though on the larger one, maybe I would put it in. You know, you think about it. You decide. So, oh my goodness, is that the whole value study? Maybe I'll go back and just, that's the whole problem. I don't want to overcomplicate this. This needs to be a very simplified thing. But maybe I'll decide to make this area a little darker, and oh, I really think right in through here should get a little darker. You play with it and you decide how you want it to look. And if you want to put more detail in it, you can, but I would recommend you try to stay with very few values. This is still about 4 values. They're not exacting. If you have those gray, different values of gray pens, that's a great way to do this because that kind of forces you to stick with the number of values you wanted. We'll demonstrate that someday, maybe. And there's probably some darker, I know there is, there's some, like it's up under there. There's a little bit darker area right up here at the front, which kind of makes a nice bottom to the thing. Have a little something. So, okay, there's our value study. That's this week's assignment, plus tracing off the large version. Let me get the large version. Oh, I don't have it handy. Okay, so I put this up on the easel and looked at it from a distance, and I'm pretty pleased with it. I dried it, so I thought that I really would like this area right around here to be a little darker, maybe. And that's part of what a value study is about. You know, you're gonna look and decide, try some things before you get on the big picture. The other thing, though, that I think with especially people that are a little, like, relatively new to painting, and some of you won't have a problem with this, and some of you may always have a little bit of a fight with getting dark enough. I don't know if I like that. Well, that's what this is about anyway, is that you'll maybe you won't be afraid to get dark enough. And that's one of the reasons I backed up on this and did something that I don't usually do with people, and that is I'm put the real darks in first. I kind of avoided that just because it can bleed, and we usually work from light to dark when we're doing our watercolors. But I think that this may help some of you get dark enough where you need to. I just think that tree needs a little darker shadow there too, and that will pop this tiny thin line of white there, which hardly shows up on your value study, but it's going to be real noticeable on your larger piece. So the thing that I was going to tell you about was here, because you've got two things. You've got two assignments this week. One is to trace this off, and you're not drawing in the eyes and everything, but you want to try to be fairly accurate with the shapes. And then you're going to do your value study. I used burnt umber and I used ivory black. And then you could go ahead and trace off your quarter sheet of 300-pound arches, and you will see the eyes on here. And some of these you barely see the eyes. And they're, like I said, they're almost a little almond shape. They've got a slant to them, a certain kind of directional slant. So I'd like, these look a little rounder, just I think because they're in closer, you can see them a little better. But try to get that accurately. Pay attention to this mouth. I think she's chewing her cud, but she looks like she's talking to you. Pay attention to those shapes in the nostrils, okay? Don't make something up. Look at what is here in the drawing. Look at your photo. You've got enlargements of the calves and the cow. So you can look at those two and study them. And I would just draw in the bare bones like I've done right here and nothing else. So that's two things. Now, if you're in one of my classes, well, you don't have to have this drawn up yet. We'll talk about this in class. But if you're in one of my classes, this is what I expect us to accomplish this week. Okay, that's all for now. Have a good week.